I recently, as in recently yesterday, finished Dragon Age Origins, the Ultimate Edition. And what that was an experience. Now it's 2022 and they have finally announced Dragon Age 4. And so I was like, you know what? I've never played a single Dragon Age game and I keep putting them off on my back shelf and I'm letting them dust. So I was like, let me blow off some of that dust. My wife's played them. She's talked about them nonstop. The internet loves them. And so how about we just jump in there? Let's try it out. It's a pretty, I mean, in comparative standards, it's a pretty old game. When did Dragon Age Origins come out? 2006? Dragon Age Origins release. Sorry, I'm doing this on the fly. 2009. So this game's over 10 years old. And let me tell you, this game plays and runs better than most games today. If you genuinely do not care about graphics, which mind you, the graphics are not that bad considering the technology that they had to work with at the time, on the 360 and stuff like that. This game is phenomenal. People praise this series for a good reason. I played this game for I decided if I was gonna play this game, I'm gonna really get into it. So the first time I jumped in, I played for 24 hours straight. Now I did take a couple breaks, so in reality, my first playthrough of the game was roughly about 20 hours nonstop with a couple breaks, maybe 22 hours, give or take. And of all the games that I've played in my life, I don't think I could play a lot of them for 22 hours straight. Dragon Age Origins has an older design because I used to play Mass Effect. I love Mass Effect, and I've played through just about all their games, and you can see the evolution at which they decided to have conversations with your party members and how interactions might work, or how you might get gear, or how they use the inventory system, and how those have evolved, or where they may have originated from or devolved from. And let me first things first, the plot of the story is kind of very BioWare normal. There's a massive threat. You must go gather your armies and fight this threat, and oh no, the threat is turning our own people into them. BioWare, I swear they have one shtick when it comes to telling story. However, this, even though I've heard the story a million times and it's not really new in my eyes, this just felt good. The world had depth to it. The world felt like I was new to everything, and the blight felt like this threat that I needed to handle. I engaged with most of the characters in the story in a way that I hadn't in other games, because I feel like in future games installments come on, it almost feels like the characters talk too much. But in Dragon Age Origins, because I don't know if they're compensating for how many people they had, how many NPCs they had that could actually talk to you, you get just enough information without feeling bloated with it all. And it's this wonderful balance of role-playing and RPG in combat. And the combat in the game, the combat system is beautiful. I understand now. I remember seeing on Twitter and on the internet and stuff like that, the people got mad at Dragon Age 2 with how they handled combat, and then people were a little happier with how they handled combat in Inquisition. And I never understood. I was like, what is it about the combat that you really people enjoy? And it's crazy. I've never experienced anything like it, where you get to kind of program how you want your companions to fight. And this system of making your companions fight in a certain way, or just stopping the game, zooming out and having a tactical view, and being able to say, hey, cast this spell, hey, attack this person, hey, heal me, gives a lot of control over what, in my opinion, Square Enix has failed at. I think Square Enix, you could almost compare like the newer Final Fantasy games to like the older BioWare games, and the fact that you have other party members that are with you, and then you go into an open area and you fight a ton of people. And Square Enix is trying to move away from these turn-based games, you know, like in Final Fantasy 13 was like one of the last ones where they made turn-based. They're trying to make it into this more action-orientated game, and it just becomes really messy. And I never felt like the combat was ever messy in Dragon Age Origin, a game that came out in 2009, that probably has more stuff going on the battlefield than most RPG games that I've played today, that I've played on very high-end PCs or next-gen consoles. I'm talking, we got maybe over 30 characters on a field, 30 different NPCs. And mind you, if you watch this channel at all, I love playing my games on the hardest difficulty that I can put them on. I had to put Dragon Age on normal. I like, it got to a point where I realized that there's just a certain way that I am playing this game that is just wrong, or that I am not capturing the combat as well as I should be. And I had to lower the game to normal difficulty to get through it, and I struggled the entire time. The progression of combat whenever you go into dungeons is so nice. It starts off easy. You get kind of cocky. There's so many times I had egg on my face because I'm like, yeah, I could raise the difficulty of the game, and then I'll get stuck at a point. The game continuously challenges you, and I had some of the best gear in the game because you got the Ultimate Edition. You're gonna get DLC gear that's way better than anything you can get early on, and I'm still struggling. I'm still having a hard time. The game absolutely rewards you for playing it. In a lot of games that makes sense, right? In RPGs and things of that nature, where yeah, if you play the game, you get high level, you get over leveled, then you just stomp on everyone around you, no problem, no bad no repercussions for taking your time. Matter of fact, you get a little bit too overpowered and the game's not as fun. Dragon Age does this and then puts a spin on it. So there's two different factors that they do that reward you for progressing through the game and actually exploring the world. The first one is whenever you talk to your companions and you interact with your companions, they level up. So the more your companions like you, the stronger they actually get. They get these passive bonuses that are... It entices you as a player to interact with them and to play their story and to do their side missions, but at the same time levels you up. So while you're learning more about the world and the story in the game, you're also progressing in armor. I also think that the world levels up with you in a certain sense. You loot drops equivalent to your level, and it levels loot at vendors. Loot at vendors also are kind of scaled with you. But the other second part to this, so not only does the progression of story and mechanics align, when you get to end game, and a lot of times I had this happen to me because I'm not a completionist. I don't play games to completion. I play games enough to where I feel comfortable where I'm at, and I'll just go and I'll beat the game. And that was it for Dragon Age. Like I think I beat the game at level 18, max level is 20. With DLC, you can go up to 25. So I'm basically high enough level to finish the game. I'm high enough level to fight the dragon and figure out the age of the dragon. And the game sends hordes and hordes of enemies that I've fought in the past, but I'm so strong that I'm essentially one-hitting them. And I think that's beautiful. Like, I've gotten to the point where, yeah, I feel like I'm at war. I feel like I'm fighting an army. And I've never really felt that way when I've played other games. I've never felt like, I felt like I've done the same thing over and over again when I've gone to the last final epic conclusion. But this was epic. This was grand on a new scale. And the game would add new mechanics. And there's always new twists and turns in the story. This game's story is so well made that... And somehow I've gone over 10 years without being spoiled about anything about this game. So if I'm avoiding telling this review with spoilers for those of you who also have gone 10 plus years without getting spoiled of this game. But the third act of this game, story wise, had me in such emotional turmoil that I did what I rarely ever do when I play games. I literally like restarted. I went back and loaded a save. I looked up on the internet what happens if I make these certain decisions, because I actually cared what was happening. The game stands on its own. The game is fantastic. The cast and crew is great. I like just about everyone. Just about. There's a couple characters I don't care for, me personally, but they're written well. And the combat system, even for as old as it is, it does feel aged. I'm not gonna lie. Like it does feel like I'm playing an older game, but not by much. Not by a lot, right? Like it. At worst, it feels like an indie game. At worst. And I'm talking about like indie games that are coming out today on consoles and stuff like that. For the most part, I didn't experience any issues. If you're playing on PC, just I don't know. You guys know how PC is. I'm new to the PC realm. I'm a console Andy, so you can experience some crashes here and there, but there are ways around it to fix it, and you guys are aware of that kind of stuff. But other than that, the game is phenomenal, and I recommend it. 100%. If you're a fan of RPG games, if you haven't touched Dragon Age, if you're waiting in between for games to come out, or if you're just looking forward for Dragon Age 4, go try out Dragon Age. I give it... there's some things... Well, okay, I talked about a lot of good things. Some of the bad things I don't like. I don't enjoy that you can essentially cheese the relationships with your companions. All you need to do is just give them gifts. If you give them a bunch of gifts, they will like you no matter what you do, which is nice. I think gifts are okay to help in some situations, but the overbearing amount of gifts to where like my dialogue with them really doesn't matter, because I can do what I want. Unlike kind of like in Cyberpunk or in Witcher, where your dialogue, this is where I think like games have advanced, with CD Projekt Red and stuff like that. Your dialogue, you may not realize that something small that you could say will have impacts further down the road, and it's so far down that you don't want to like load and try something else. So that feels a bit dated, because I literally, the first, I think 5 hours of the game of me playing, I maxed out my relationship with Morrigan. And then for the rest, so it probably took me about like 50 hours, maybe 40 for runtime, just doing side quests and stuff like that, to beat the game. And I wasted all my dialogue options with Morrigan in the very like first 5 hours. So I had nothing else to say to her. So I guess in some ways, if you are annoyed with conversations with your NPCs, then you can knock them all out of the park right there in the beginning. But there was a point, I did spend probably a good amount of time just like doing everybody's side mission, maxing them all out, and then I played the rest of the game. Because it's like, if I can get them all done right here, right now, then I might as well. So it does kind of take away from it, and it is kind of weird because the perception of time, like the game obviously wants you to talk to them as you're doing missions and not all at once. And so like they act like the perception of time is going differently, even though it was my first time at camp and I'm talking to them. And they're like, man, these journeys have been great with you. And I'm like, we haven't done anything together. We just met. So I would, that feels a bit dated. That feels a bit weird and kind of takes out the immersion. But it is an older game, but it runs really well. I think there are a lot of times the questing can be a bit confusing. I wish the quest log was built a little better, so the it can be a little like user friendly, non-user friendly. The interface isn't that great. The map's pretty good. In times when the map needs to be good, not good, it differs. Combat, I think combat is challenging, and that's good. People might say it's difficult or too hard. No, I think it's challenging. I think it's the right amount. You do have to learn how to fight someone in a tactical aspect. So with all that being said, the game is downright a 9 out of 10. I honestly, it's a 9 out. If it came out today in 2022, it's a 9 out of 10. If I played it when it first came out in 2009, it'd be a 10 out of 10. So that's a 2022 review for you for Dragon Age Origins. Go check it out. Hope you have a good time.